What that basically means is EA is 100% purchased. It is no longer a publicly traded company. And they're so much so that the purchasers, notably PIF, Silver Lake, and Infinity Partners, bought it for a 25% over the stock valuation of the company. What is up, everybody? It is Jake back with the MF Film Room. Thank you so much for being here. If you want to be up to date on all things EA College Football, hit that red subscribe button, hit the like button, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram. If you like college football content, go subscribe to my other channel, Master Football with Jake Posey. The link is in the description. But enough about all that EA College Football content. Let's go. All right, guys, I'm filming this on Friday. I want to say like the 16th, the 17th. What day is it today? It's the 17th. I'm filming this on Friday the 17th. So again, by the time this comes out, this could be a little late. There could be some new, happenstances in the world there in regards to what I'm going to talk about today. But I want to release this on Tuesday. So the reason why I want to release it on Tuesday, just to kind of give it a little bit of time here to cook, let my other videos kind of go there. But I wanted to discuss this because it actually happened a couple weeks ago here. But there's a lot of people. There was a couple comments. I got a couple videos like, hey, EA College Football, RIP, the game's going away, blah, blah, blah. I was like, what the hell is everybody talking about? Everybody's talking about the purchase of EA. Now, I want to make sure I set the stage here because there's a lot to discuss here, and there's a lot of little, interweaving narratives and plots and what's going on over here, what's going on over there. I want to kind of try to put a bow on it and also make sure I can kind of address it because I think that there's a really good amount of things we need to talk about, and they're going to affect EA Sports and especially EA College Football. Let's get into that breakdown right now. All right, so we're going to set the chapters here. We're basically going to go through kind of like what actually happened. What does this mean for EA? What is this? How does this affect EA College Football? What are the possible scenarios to kind of outcome or the following actions from this? And then ultimately, what do I think is going to happen? So first of all, let's get into what actually happened with this article right here. So on EA's newsroom from the horse's mouth itself, EA announces agreement to be acquired by PIF, Silver Lake, and Infinity Partners for $55 billion. I'm not going to read every single word here, but there's a couple key points I want to make sure I pull out of this. So it says EA, a global leader in interactive entertainment, today announced that it has entered into a definitive agreement to be acquired by an investor consortium, the consortium, comprised of PIF, the Public Investment Fund, a company that is, I believe, an entity out of Saudi Arabia, Silver Lake, and Infinity Partners in an all-cash transaction. There's actually some discrepancies around that. That values EA at an enterprise value of approximately $55 billion. The transaction positions EA to accelerate innovation and growth to build the future of entertainment. So very, very important here is this next paragraph. So this next paragraph is absolutely huge, the second sentence especially. So first sentence to go, it goes, under the terms of the agreement, the consortium will acquire 100% of EA, with PIF rolling over its already existing 9.9% stake in the company. EA stockholders will receive $210 per share in cash. And it's the third sentence here. But the per share purchase price represents a 25% premium to EA's unaffected share price of $168.32 at market close on September 25th, 2025, the last fully unaffected trading day, and a premium to EA's unaffected all-time high of $179.01 at market close August 14th, 2025. What that basically means is EA is 100% purchased. It is no longer a publicly traded company, and they're so much so that the purchasers, notably PIF, Silver Lake, and Infinity Partners, bought it for a 25% over the stock valuation of the company. So pretty simple here, what actually happened. EA was bought by multiple investment groups, private equity, some investment firms. One of the entities of particular note was PIF, a Saudi company. The other purchasers were Silver Lake and Infinity Partners, a private equity and investment firm, respectively. Again, the purchase was for 25% more than what the stock was worth. And I know a lot of people are thinking, okay, so it was bought by private equity. First of all, some people don't know what private equity actually means. It basically just means private banking, so companies that, act as banks, even though they're private, they're not necessarily, limited or governed by banking rules. So they are to some degree. But the more important thing here is kind of like what happens? What is a private equity? Why would private equity want to buy EA? I think getting into a description, you're asking artificial intelligence, it kind of breaks it down pretty obviously, especially when you think about EA and its perception. So Google's AI overview actually does a really good job. I say, what type of companies does private equity target? And you see here companies with growth potential. We also see companies with operational improvement potential, aka underperforming companies, companies with operational inefficiencies, financially distressed companies, companies in financial distress. Now, EA might not have been in financial distress, but basically what private equity tries to do is private equity is like, we want a company that has demand, it has potential growth potential, and it's not really being run by the best people right now. We're going to come in there and run it a little bit better. Whether or not they do or not, that is totally up to the situation. But I think that for the most part, as people have seen EA over the years, EA is not exactly the most well-run company. So we mentioned there before Silver Lake Affinity Partners, an investment group, a private equity group, what they're going to do there. Now, the more important one, the one that's kind of causing the big hubbub here is the PIF, the Public Investment Fund. Now, the Public Investment Fund, it's basically Saudi Arabia's opportunity to kind of reach out there and diversify their portfolio, for lack of a better term. Because right now, Saudi Arabia is kind of seeing the writing on the wall when it comes to a couple different things that affect them. One of them, most notably, is when Saudi Arabia has one asset that it overly relies on, that it needs to basically, it's kind of taking the money from that asset right now, putting it elsewhere in order to diversify its assets. What is that asset that they have that they're over relying on right now? Oil, Saudi Aramco. So if you can see this here, this is wild. So as of 2024, it is the fourth largest company in the world by revenue, and it is headquartered in Dhahran. And again, I hope I said that correctly here, but you can see the fact that what's happening with Saudi Arabia, they kind of understand is they've got black gold, for lack of a better term. They've got oil. The problem is they know if wind and solar and nuclear energy start to make a comeback here and people kind of move away, if the United States starts to invest more in its own oil drilling, if Venezuela does too, they're kind of in a situation where they're like, okay, well, we have this one thing right here. We're overly relying on it. We need to diversify our portfolio out there, get our money into different assets going forward. And they've actually done a really, really good job of diversifying, considering the companies that they've bought. So this is me asking Grok here, and I'm using AI for some of the breakdown here just to make sure I can provide some of the points. But it said here that it talked about the PIF, in addition to Silver Lake and Affinity. That I also kind of asked, like, what are other companies that PIF has bought? How have they interacted with, influenced by the companies that they bought compared to before they were bought? Do they change a lot of things? And it basically says here, you can see a lot of what they buy here. Mobile games, gaming, Fatal Fury, gaming, entertainment, tech, some real estate, some media. But for the most part, it's the entertainment and the gaming space that the PIF is heavily investing in. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, well, what's wrong with that? That's a really, really good thing. Well, there's some term that you need to understand here, which gives me a little bit of pause. And I learned it from this video I'm going to put in the description here. So this is an awesome, awesome video here from Upper Echelon. I'm going to make sure I include the link in the description here. But it basically says that gaming is going through a situation right now where, again, the PIF, they're buying all these entities. They're trying to scale them. They're trying to get involved in esports and this and that. And some of it's because of the passion of some of the princes in Saudi Arabia. Another reason, though, that kind of gets brought up in this video is a term that is called sports washing. So the term sports washing is used to describe the practice of governments, individuals, corporations, or other groups using sports to improve reputations tarnished by wrongdoing. A form of propaganda, sports washing can be accomplished through hosting sporting events, purchasing or sponsoring sports teams, or participating in a sport. If you've ever remember watching the movie Gladiator, he says he'll bring them death and they'll love him for it. He understands that what they're trying to do, Commodus, what he was trying to do was Commodus was trying to kind of distract the people from the fact that, like, yeah, maybe our human rights abuses haven't been the best in the entire world. And some have strongly suggested that that is exactly what's happening here with EA. So whether or not Saudi Arabia is sports washing their reputation, well, again, whatever. I'm not here to touch that. I'm just here to identify that's something that other people have said. What I want to do now is talk about the next chapter in this, which is what does this kind of mean for EA? So the reason why it was sold for the amount of $50 billion plus was because of the brands EA has, notably EAFC, Madden, EA College Football. They also have Battlefield. The reason why someone wanted to buy it in the first place is most likely due to the PE method of buy popular but not well-run companies. So you think about what EA has. EA has an immense amount of assets under its belt, not just the EA Sports umbrella. So checking out EA and what they've got here, they've got a lot of different entities here. They've got The Sims, Battlefield, Apex Legends, Need for Speed, EA Sports, like I said, Battlefield, Sims. It's got these studios of Respawn, DICE, which has the Battlefield series, Maxis, which develops The Sims, BioWare, known for Dragon Age and Mass Effect. It's got the Command and Conquers. It's got Dead Space. It's got a lot of entities underneath the EA umbrella that are all now purchased by those investment groups that are going out there. So when you purchase a company like this, when you're talking about EA and the fact that they're being purchased, what does this mean for EA and EA Sports? Again, those last two things there are kind of my opinion. I'm going to kind of bring a head to them later on in the video here, but EA Sports is one of the few entities of EA that actually does really, really well. You think about EAFC. EAFC is massive. You're talking about Madden, EA College Football. You're talking about all of those different entities they have. They have NHL. They do really, really well. There's other entities that are kind of in a weird spot here. Most notably is BioWare. And when you talk about profitability of EA College Football is very, very profitable. EA College Football 25 was the best-selling sports video game in the United States based on dollar sales, surpassing all previous titles. And EA College Football 26, year to date, is the third best-selling video game in the United States. So considering the fact that those are few entities of EA that do really, really well, I mentioned before about BioWare, they're not one of them. Just literally Googling BioWare, and it's actually kind of crazy here. So it's got an article right here. It says BioWare is just waiting for the axe to fall after the EA's $55 billion buyout. So there's lots of comments about that. One of the big reasons why is because, unfortunately, Dragon Age Veilguard, you see this over here. It looks like it did a really, really good job. Wow, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10. The sales weren't where it wanted to be. And they also have Mass Effect Andromeda that kind of underperformed. Anthem that drastically underperformed. They've kind of had a couple duds in a row, and I think some people out there think it's because they're overly reliant on what the Critical Drinker, he's a YouTuber, what the Critical Drinker calls the message. So what I think is going to happen here with BioWare is, BioWare, they're an entity, they're in a weird spot. Like, what do you do with BioWare? Do you sell it off, but you sell off the entities of Mass Effect and Dragon Age, which are good brands? Do you keep it, but then you clean? What do you do there? The problem is right now, if you're looking for the aspects of Electronic Arts where it's got high earning potential, but it's got poor management, you look no further than BioWare. So how does this affect EA College Football? That's the next chapter here. And I think that when you talk about these different firms and what they do, private equity, what a lot of private equity tries to do is they come in, they drastically simplify some things, they cut some budgets, and then they kind of move with a skeleton crew, try and automate some things as much as they can, and then move on. They've got a lot of money, so more than likely what's going to happen here, there's a couple of things that could happen. We could see some budget cuts. If they come, it could be more like the QI and the testers could move to more of an AI situation as opposed to humans. There could be more monetization. Again, they could monetize all jersey packs. They could monetize College Football Ultimate Team. Again, the PIF is largely hands-off with its other video game assets. I think that, like I said, with that sports washing narrative, they use it just kind of for the positive PR. But it could also push some scalability. What that is, I'm not 100% sure, but that's kind of the narrative that's out there. Now, I brought up here basically 4 possible scenarios with EA College Football. So there's the good, the mid, the bad, and the horrible. So the good scenario is EA College Football is given a long leash due to its profitability and not being a flagship brand. Again, Battlefield makes a lot of money. EAFC makes a lot of money. Madden makes a lot of money. EA College Football does too, but the cool thing about it is I think that for the most part, if PIF, if Silver Lake, if Affinity Partners are going to start meddling, they would probably meddle with more of either the less profitable brands or the highly profitable brands, trying to maximize them as much as possible. So that's the kind of the good scenario. The mid scenario, they might get some budget cuts, particularly to QA in favor of AI. There might be more monetization, like I said, jersey packs, Ultimate Team, those sorts of things. Talking about the bad and the horrible. So the bad is over monetization and budget cuts. They could just drastically cut it to the point to where the game's not very great. They could over monetize things. You could monetize a custom playbook. You could monetize being able to have check audibles. That would be something that would be heinous. And then the horrible would be, so if you've ever seen this before, there's a term that's PIF could do a reverse rob of the company, and they could discontinue the EA College Football brand. No, most notably, there's a company where this kind of happened, and it was Red Lobster. So the absolute worst case scenario for a private equity purchase of a company is, and I don't know what the exact term here is, but they basically just kind of try to rob the company that they just bought blind. Rather than selling the stock, which could, if you sell all the stock, that could hurt the stock price and actually cost you money in instances like that. They actually just kind of strip assets, increase fees, and just kind of trying to suck the company dry, claim the loss on taxes. I mean, again, this is all way above my pay grade, but I know that that's a narrative out there that private equity tried to do that to Red Lobster. Red Lobster's still around, obviously. That could ultimately happen to EA College Football. I'm going to discuss what I think is going to have happen, though, right now. All right, what do I actually think is going to happen? Again, I think somewhere between the good and the mid on the previous slide is kind of what's going to be the situation here. EA would not have been purchased for over 25% over the asking price just to tank the products. I think that the reason why they bought that for the surplus is they think that, like, oh, well, we're going to be able to, take advantage of the fact that this company's not ran very well. We're going to be able to monetize more things. We're going to maybe be able to do something with this company over here, with this entity over here, this entity over there. There's a couple things they could do there. I think that EA Sports may have some changes, but they're going to be minimal. The reason why the company was worth so much was because of EA Sports. The investment firms are paying $50 billion now to make more than that over the long haul. That's what everybody does. I mean, Warren Buffett would buy laundromats. He would buy, this little store. He would buy convenience stores here and there, boom, boom, boom. The reason why is because I'm going to buy it for 3 to 5 times annual earnings. I'm going to own it for 6 years. I'm making money. You do that times 100 companies, times 1,000 companies, and you're going to be rolling in the dough. I think that's what the PIF, Affinity, and Silver Lake want to do. Is they're not trying to do some weird, goofy stuff. They're probably like, we're trying to get sustainable growth. We're trying to diversify our assets to get some things out there. And we see a company that's not ran very well, notably EA, and we can do it better. So thinking about that, like a drastic or a crazy move with EA Sports would do more harm than good. That's one of the few entities that EA has that's actually be able to turn a profit. DICE maybe with Battlefield, The Sims as well, but there's other entities they have, though, that might be having issues. So the other entities will be sold off or clean house. I think that, like I said, DICE and Battlefield, that will be mostly kept. If you work at BioWare, update your resume. Unfortunately, you've had a couple dud after dud after dud, concentrating too much on the message and not on making quality games. Again, that's what I think is going to happen ultimately with EA. So ultimately, I don't think there's going to be a lot that happen. Again, I could totally be wrong. They could come in. They could say, okay, we're going to concentrate on this. We're going to cut that. Boom, boom, boom. That could totally happen. The game could totally go away 100%. My best guess, though, my money being, again, if I spent $55 billion, I would want to keep what's working, and change what's not working. That's what I would want to do. Again, for the PIF, they might have overpaid because they knew they could, but they're trying to diversify away from oil. Whether or not they use this as a positive PR campaign, I don't know. That's completely hearsay here or there. But I do know that most importantly, EA College Football, it makes money. It's pretty lean. It's pretty efficient. It most likely will not be touched. But that's just my opinion. You guys get in the comments right now and let me know what you guys think. Also, be sure to like, share, comment, subscribe. Do all that stuff. I really appreciate it. That's it for me, guys. I'll see you guys later. I am out.